Growing up, I always found it difficult to call my mother Mom. The word felt foreign on my tongue, too soft and warm for the woman who raised me. Instead, I called her Jackie, a name that suited her better, I thought, because it carried a certain sharpness, a detachment that mirrored our relationship. Jackie was young when she had me, barely out of her teens, and motherhood crashed into her life like an uninvited guest. She wasn't ready for it, and she never quite figured out how to be. My biological father, Avery, didn't stick around to help. He walked away before I could even form a memory of him, leaving Jackie to wrestle with the weight of single parenthood. That abandonment shaped her, and in turn it shaped us. Our bond strained from the start, threaded with tension and unspoken resentment. As a kid, I didn't fully understand why things felt off between us. I just knew they did. Jackie's emotions were unpredictable, like a storm that could shift from calm to chaos without warning. She'd laugh with me one moment, then snap at me the next, her patience fraying at the edges. I learned early on to tread carefully, to gauge her mood before speaking. Looking back, I think she was overwhelmed by me, by life, by the future she hadn't planned for. But as a child, I couldn't see that. All I saw was a mother who didn't seem to want me around. When my half-sister Leah came along, everything changed. Leah was born to Jackie and Mike, my stepfather, a man who stepped into our lives with quiet kindness. Suddenly, there was this new little person in the house, and Jackie lit up in a way I'd never seen before. She doted on Leah, showered her with affection, and seemed to find a joy in mothering her that she'd never found with me. I was still young, maybe 7 or 8, when I started noticing the difference. Leah's tiny hands would reach for Jackie, and Jackie would scoop her up, her face glowing with love. I'd watch from the sidelines, feeling like an outsider in my own home. Birthdays made it impossible to ignore. Leah's were grand affairs, balloons, cakes with intricate frosting, laughter spilling out of every corner of the house. Jackie would plan them for weeks, her excitement palpable. My birthdays, though, were quieter, almost an afterthought. I'd get a cake, sure, but it was usually store-bought, and the candles were lit with a distracted air. One year, when I turned 10, Jackie forgot to buy me a gift until the last minute. She handed me a hastily wrapped book, something about horses I didn't even like, and said, "Sorry, I've been busy with Leah." I smiled and said thank you, but inside, jealousy gnawed at me. It wasn't just about the gifts. It was the way Jackie's eyes sparkled for Leah and dull for me. My father, though, was different. He wasn't around all the time. He and Jackie had split before I could remember, but when he made me feel seen. He'd call me kiddo and take me out for ice cream, just the two of us, asking about school and listening like my words mattered. Even after he moved a few towns away and started a new life, he'd drive over on weekends or send me letters with little doodles in the margins. His love was steady, a lifeline I clung to when Jackie's moods left me adrift. Mike, my stepfather, was kind too, in his own way. He wasn't as expressive as my dad, but he'd fix my bike or help with homework. Small gestures that told me he cared. College was when the distance between Jackie and me stretched into a chasm. I moved out, eager for a fresh start, and threw myself into my studies. My dad would call every Sunday, his voice warm through the phone, asking about my classes and my friends. Mike would text now and then, checking in. But Jackie? She barely reached out. I'd send her updates about a good grade, a part-time job I'd landed, and she'd respond with a curt nice or nothing at all. When I graduated with honors, my dad and Mike were there, cheering me on. Jackie sent a card 2 weeks late with generic "congrats" scrawled inside. It stung, but by then, I'd stopped expecting more. It was my ex-boyfriend Ian who first put a name to what I'd been feeling. We were sitting in my cramped apartment one night, talking about family, when he said, "You know, I think Jackie's jealous of you." I laughed at first, jealous of me? But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. I was building a life she'd never had the chance to, a degree, a future, a sense of control. Maybe that's why she pulled away. Maybe she saw in me everything she'd lost when Avery left her pregnant and alone. Life kept moving. I met Phil, a man with a quiet strength and a laugh that made me feel safe. And we fell in love. When I got pregnant, I was over the moon, nervous, yes, but ready to be the kind of parent I'd always wanted Jackie to be. I called her, hoping she'd share my excitement. Instead, her voice was flat. "Oh, that's something," she said, then added, "I always thought Leah would be first." The words cut deep, laced with that familiar jealousy. I hung up feeling foolish for expecting anything else. Things came to a head a few weeks later. Jackie called me out of the blue, her tone sharp, and launched into a tirade about my marriage and my pregnancy. "You think you're so perfect now, don't you?" she spat, rubbing it in my face. I'd never heard her so raw, so unfiltered. For years, I'd swallowed her jabs, but this time, something snapped. "I'm done," I told her, my voice shaking but firm. "You don't get to talk to me like this anymore." I set boundaries that day, limited contact, no more guilt trips, and decided she wouldn't have a big role in my child's life. It felt like shedding a weight I'd carried too long. The baby shower was supposed to be my moment of peace. Phil's mom hosted it in her sunny backyard, with flowers everywhere and a table pile high with gifts. Friends and family milled around, their chatter warm and bright. Then Jackie showed up uninvited, with Ian in tow. I hadn't seen him since we'd broken up, and my stomach dropped. She marched in, all fake smiles, and started making snide comments about my perfect little life. Ian stood awkwardly beside her, clearly uncomfortable. I tried to keep my cool, but when Jackie loudly suggested Phil wasn't good enough for me, Ian stepped in. "You're the one who's never been good enough," he said, his voice cutting to the hum of the party. "You've been manipulating her for years." Heads turned. The air went still. Ian laid it all bare. Her jealousy, her favoritism, the way she tried to drag me down. It was messy in public, but it broke something open. Jackie stormed out, her face red. And for once, I didn't chase after her. After that, Leah and I talked, really talked, for the first time in years. She'd seen Jackie's toxicity too, felt its edges even if they cut her less deeply. We decided together to cut ties. It wasn't easy. The family split over it. Some understood, some didn't, but it was the right choice. Mike left Jackie not long after, tired of her games. I heard she moved into a small apartment across town, alone now, but I didn't reach out. 8 months later, I gave birth to a beautiful, healthy baby. The delivery room was filled with love. Phil holding my hand, my dad beaming, Mike bringing flowers. They celebrated with me, no shadows of the past dimming the light. Jackie wasn't there, and I didn't miss her. She's still out there somewhere, a distant figure tied to memories I've learned to let go. My life now is full, messy, and real, but mine, and that's enough.